You're listening to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. In this show, you'll hear industry experts share tips of success and failure from their real estate investing journeys. You'll get a transparent look behind the curtain while you learn to fulfill the lifestyle you want to live and achieve your wealth goals. Get ready for the journey to financial freedom through investing in multifamily real estate. Here's your host, Blake Dailey.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Multifamily Journey Podcast. Excited for today's show. Coming to you live today from my kitchen because right now we're transitioning from moving out of our old house into our new house and renting out all the other units. This is the week after Labor Day. So we spent all Labor Day busting our butts to get those done. And now we don't have the office complete yet. So I'm here in the kitchen, but still going at it. I think everybody's going to be really pleased with this show today. We got Megan Greathouse, a former Marine Corps captain, and then went into a corporate career in branding and marketing after that. And she since left her career in 2017 after beginning her real estate investing career to spend more time with her family. She is very family-oriented and lifestyle-oriented, and her investing follows that path. It really drives the lifestyle. And I think this is such a powerful show because a lot of people come to real estate, and really most of the people that I've talked to come to real estate because they want something more, whether it's to get out of their job or to have financial freedom to travel or spend time with their family. Megan has achieved that, and she's also scaling into commercial multifamily now. So you're going to get to hear about all of that. I think it's a really powerful episode, and Megan's just fun to talk to and provides great value. So with that, let's get into the show. All right, everybody, we got Megan Greathouse on the podcast. Megan, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's exciting to speak with another service member. I'm a veteran myself and just dig into this multifamily journey with you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's awesome to have you. So why don't you dig in on your background a little bit and then how you got started on your own real estate journey?
Sure. So I was actually a military kid growing up. So funny enough, I'm in real estate, but I think my family owned a house once for 3 years in my whole childhood. But we moved around and it was fun and I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the Marine Corps community. My father was a Marine. So actually when I graduated from college, I joined the Marine Corps as well and served for 4 years as an officer, and then did a little reserve work afterwards as well. So I used my GI Bill to get my MBA afterwards while I did that reserve work. And then that turned into a corporate career in marketing for a consumer goods company. And I actually really loved that work too, but I had my daughter in 2016. And of course that just flipped my perspective on how I wanted to be spending my time. And I guess the flexibility that I wanted in my life and my career. I still wanted a career. I still wanted to be building something for myself and my family. But the 9 to 5 just wasn't quite meeting my needs at that point anymore. So I started looking around and I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad years ago and always thought that real estate would be interesting. And this is what really kicked me into high gear with looking at real estate in a more serious way. So in 2017, I bought my first 4-family and then built up over, I guess it was right about 2 years, 10 units. And my husband and I got to a point where we felt like that was generating a little bit of side income that we could keep reinvesting into the business. And we felt comfortable with me leaving my job. So in January of 2019, I left my corporate job, started working from home on the real estate a few days a week, and then also got extra time with my daughter, who's now 4, and we also have a 1-year-old son. So it was really family and flexibility and lifestyle that led me to real estate. And then, of course, I've fallen in love with it in general. So it's also fun for me at this point.
Oh, that's awesome. So at the same time, you're building your family, you're building your portfolio, and the goals align there, which I love. And I definitely want to get into that more and just, how you've built real estate around the lifestyle you want. I think that's where a lot of people, what draws them to real estate is wanting to have that time freedom and the flexibility like you were talking about. So I think that's going to be a great topic to get into. But before that, you said you started with the military and the Marine Corps, and you were a captain in the Marine Corps. So wanted to touch a little bit on how the military prepared you to start your investing career and kind of what lessons you took from that have helped you in business.
Yeah, I think I will always have a love for the Marine Corps. I grew up around it and then served for 4 years myself, and I did learn so much from it. I think even just growing up as a kid, I had to learn adaptability and flexibility because we moved every 2 to 3 years. I mean, I was 10 years old before I figured out that not every family moves every 2 to 3 years. I just thought, the whole world was moving every couple of years. And so you really had to figure out how to just get used to a new place. You were constantly kind of on the go and make new friends and settle into a new school. And then, I took that with me over time. I eventually joined the Marine Corps myself. And that was a big challenge for me in just like learning how to do hard things just for the sake of the challenge and because you know that it's going to make you better in some way. So I think that's a big thing I always harp on is like, do hard things, just do them. It pays off in so many ways. Challenging yourself is the way to grow, and facing discomfort with a smile it just gives you the type of perspective that can help you through anything in life, really. And not to say that I'm perfect at any of this, but I got some of those lessons from the Marine Corps and I've been able to carry those forward. And then I'm sure you're familiar with this concept, Blake, but in the Marine Corps, they always drilled into us, you need to get to an 80% plan and then go. And I think that's been really big for me in business and in investing because I see a lot of folks around me who maybe we started looking at real estate at the same time, but they haven't necessarily done anything with it yet because they're in analysis paralysis. And the military really set me up for success in terms of not falling into that trap. You have to understand that you're never going to have perfect information. There's never going to be a perfect plan. There's never going to be a perfect deal, but you still have to take action if you want to get anywhere. So come up with that 80% plan, knowing that at some point things are going to fall apart or things aren't going to go right. Get started and then adapt as you go. And I think that served me really well. So obviously I could go on and on, but there's been a lot of things about the military that have really served me well with investing.
There is no better asset class for building wealth than real estate. And in most instances, people don't have the time or energy to invest in it on their own. So how do you build wealth with real estate when you lack the time and energy? Leave that to the Growthview Properties. The Growthview team finds, negotiates, and manages multifamily assets for private investors. Their mission is to help investors secure the ultimate asset, which is time, all the while impacting the greater good with their endowment fund that fuels the mission of charitable organizations. Find out more by going to thegrowthview.com. That's view with a VUE.com. Put your money to work so you don't have to at thegrowthview.com. Yeah, I think those 2 points are huge for anybody, whether you have a military background or not, is that anything worth having is worth going through the effort and the pain to get through there. And you have to have a little bit of grit, which the military does a really good job at teaching you to get to that point where you're reaping the rewards. And then action, right? Like it's not really a ready, fire, aim, but like you said, get to the 80% solution and, you figure out the 100% after you take action. And I'm very much not a details person. My wife is that side of me, right? I kind of just go out and leave a wake of madness behind me and helps me stir up the details with all of our properties. But yeah, it's such an important point for people looking to get started is, you don't have to have all the answers right when you get started. Do your education and research to learn enough, but action is the most important thing because you're going to learn things that you never would have if you don't just go. So that's huge. And the military definitely has helped me with those things as well. So when you got started, you said you bought a 4-unit and that was in St. Louis, right?
Correct.
Okay, so 4-unit in St. Louis. Did you use your VA loan for that when you got started?
I did not. We were not going to house hack. We actually already had our own single family home that we had purchased before my daughter was born and before we were really in this investor mindset. So we were kind of settled and we had I guess at that point she would have been just turned a year when we bought the fourplex. And we weren't making a big move at that point, but the 4 family was in an area of the city that was actually a little more transitional. Prices were still pretty low. And actually they've already gone up quite a bit. I'm working on a line of credit on that property because I guess we got in at the right time, and the area has continued to kind of show some growth and lots of rehab in the area. But yeah, we started with a 4-family essentially because we had had a single family previously that we lived in and then kept as a rental when we moved to our second one. So that was kind of our first, I guess, toe in the water with investing. And it just gave us, we did it for like a year to make sure, or 2 years maybe, to make sure we liked real estate. And we decided we did, but we didn't like the idea. The first time that the tenants left, I felt uncomfortable immediately. I thought, oh my gosh, we've got this single family mortgage. No one is going to cover it when these tenants leave. And I don't know how long it's going to be empty. So that got me very interested in the concept of multifamily, and even just small multifamily, duplexes and triplexes and 4 families, because I knew there was a good chance that I could at least make sure not every tenant was leaving at the same time in any of these given buildings.
Over the doors. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, our first true investment purchase was this 4 family in the kind of up and coming neighborhood in St. Louis City.
Yeah, that's a great reason, I think, to get into multifamily right off the bat, right? If you have a single family home and you go vacant, you have one person that is not paying the rent. So it's 100% vacant, right? But if you have, say with this 4 family and you have one person leave, it's still 75% occupied, and you're likely still covering all your expenses, maybe even cash flowing just a little bit because, you scaled up to more doors. And you kind of figured this out early, right? You had the single family experience behind you to know that, if this goes vacant, we're sitting in a bad spot, and that's not where you want to be. So I think that's a good reason why to jump into multifamily right off the bat. Even if it's like you're saying 1 to 4, that's how we started. All of ours right now are 2 units. But we still have that spread out a little bit. And then you get the experience of operating, and all that. So I guess with starting with this 4-plex and then the next investments, what did those look like?
Yeah, so it's been a little bit all over the place because, it was early on, and I'm still somewhat early on in this process, but I was testing and trying different things. So actually, I just talked about the whole, I won't say aversion to single family, but the desire to have more units in one building. But my next purchase was actually a single family. So we did buy a single family. I want to say it was 4 or 5 months after that first 4 family. And I wasn't actually looking for a single family, but it was one of those funny things where I try to be good about networking consistently and on the Bigger Pockets forums and on social media and et cetera. And in a Bigger Pockets forum, I saw someone mention a single family house in St. Louis that was renting for a really high rent for our area. And by this time, I already had really gotten to know a lot of the different areas of St. Louis. I understood kind of what you could generally rent things for. And I was surprised to see what he said he was renting this thing for. And he mentioned he was selling it. So I reached out more out of curiosity, almost like, there's no way this is true, man. Like you shouldn't be putting out there that you're getting that much rent. That's not right. And I asked him, how are you getting this much rent? But I don't know any areas of St. Louis that do that. And he mentioned, well, it's actually a student rental. So he's got, a few students in this big house, and he includes utilities for them. And it's right over by Washington University in St. Louis, which is a big university, draws people from all over the country and all over the world. And I went there for my MBA, so I know that school and that area. And as soon as he told me that, it kind of made sense. So not even having planned to go after it, just more out of curiosity, I talked to him and then decided to go after it. And the thing that I liked about this property was, while I'm primarily a buy and hold person, I liked the idea of maybe doing a flip or 2 here and there to help raise capital for future purchases. And so this property was currently rented, cash flowing well. And I felt that when those tenants left, I could rehab this building and make a lot of, potentially a lot of money on it to put towards more buy and holds. So it was kind of a long flip or slow flip process. And it, of course, we ended up riddled with issues during the renovation process. This was a 1910 home, 2.5 stories.
Yeah. The old homes have problems.
They get you,
Yeah.
And not to mention dealing with contractors on something of that scale. More than anything, I learned a lot about dealing with contractors and my mistakes with doing that on this project. But, we still came out making a little bit of money, just not nearly as much as I had been hoping initially. And it was a beautiful renovation. This was a historic home in a great area, and it hadn't seen any renovation in a long time. So it was a fun project. But yeah, our second one was actually me finding a single family that ended up being kind of a slow flip. But the next year, so it was probably 5 or 6 months after we bought that property, we bought another duplex. And then towards the end of 2018, so I guess another 10 months later, less than probably 8 months, another duplex, and then mid 2019, another duplex. So we kind of just kept stacking, and I ended up finding these side-by-side duplexes that I really liked. Up and down is great too, but side-by-side, I think it almost runs like a single family. They've got
it's
these,
a little bit more like a home feel, yeah.
Exactly. You've got your separate entrances. You're not walking on top of each other. Some of them have separated basements as well. So I've really enjoyed those side-by-side duplexes, and I think that tenants love those.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I actually just bought a top and bottom with a partner. And we had that discussion, like, I don't know, we think side-by-sides are a little bit better because then you don't hear the footsteps overhead and everything else. But we're getting it rented right now. It's had a ton of traffic because it's in a good area, thankfully.
Yeah.
So I think it's offsetting that a little bit. But
well, and I think that they're great as well. I just have noticed, I think there are a couple things that side-by-sides offer that top and bottoms don't.
There's definitely different
by no means doesn't mean I wouldn't actually invest in a top and bottom if the right deal came along. It just so happened that I kept finding these side-by-sides, and I thought, well, I know the benefits of those, so I kept
and it's because like usually with like small multifamily, it's not quite an apartment, right? So the tenants still get a little bit of like it's their home feel. With the side-by-side, you have like your own yard, maybe a fence down the middle, but with a top bottom, it's kind of like whose yard is what, where's the boundaries. There's just little nuances to it. So just things to think about, which my partner and I were, I think the area will overcome it. So, and so far it's been working, but that's a good point. You mentioned in there, after making your first investment, it seemed like every couple 8 months, whatever you and your husband were adding the next unit, doing a flip in there to create some cash to put into the next unit. That's something I've done myself. I had one flip that also didn't work out as planned, because when you kind of switch strategies and do things for the first time, you think it's going to work out great. And then sometimes it doesn't. So actually mine was like a break even, and it seems like you made a little bit, so that's good. But you mentioned before we jumped on that all the money from the rentals goes in back to the business, right? To continue to scale. And I think that's important to mention here. Like there's things you can do, right? You don't have to wait, a year till one property is paid off, right? There's ways to generate cash for that next down payment, or create a financing, right? So I've done wholesaling to create money to put into buy and hold, because that's my strategy. So there's ways you can go out and do it. And Megan's a good testament to that. So Megan, as you're scaling up, you got the 4-unit, the single family, and then a couple duplexes. How do you think that size of property and really growing pretty quickly in 2 years, how has that prepared you to scale into commercial multifamily now?
Yeah, I think just being in real estate in general, whether it's, a bunch of single families or a handful of these small multifamilies, you just learn a lot about the industry. And then it starts to kind of pique your interest in other ways you can grow and scale. And I think something that buying these 4 families and 2 families showed me was, while I can buy maybe a couple properties per year, because I'm not the person who is, trying to build this big machine that allows me to close on a property every month. That's not what I want out of this. I got into this to have more time with my kids, and just the sheer kind of amount of work, and probably even bringing some people on to help to get a pace like that isn't what I'm looking for right now while my kids are young, at least not until they're school age and they're gone 5 days a week anyway. Will I probably be doing something like that? So I got to a point where I thought, I actually had my son in August of last year. So my last purchase was in July of last year. We were renovating it with a newborn around. And then after that, I kind of took a little break after that renovation to just, catch up on sleep and the newborn phase.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way right now.
And then we came into 2020 and I thought, okay, I'm going to be getting back to it. And then COVID hit. And so that kind of gave me, another moment to pause. And while we were in the early months of COVID, I was thinking about, how quickly do I have to get back to it to get a couple more properties by the end of the year? How many units can I actually get to? And I was starting to feel a little frustrated about the idea of buying, just 2, maybe 3 or 4 properties per year. And on the top end, getting maybe another 6 units in a year. And knowing I really want to keep scaling, and I've built a really strong network, and I've actually had some people who have started to approach me about the idea of partnering on things, I started to finally think bigger. And I think that, just being in the real estate space in general opened me up to those ideas in a way that I hadn't been open to them before. So now I'm at the point where I'm excited about my next purchase being a larger multifamily. So hopefully at least 16 units. I'm looking at some 12 and 14 units when they come up, but I want to at least double my portfolio with my next purchase, hopefully 1.5 times it. And I'll be bringing in partners to do that. So it's going to be a slightly different way of doing things, but I'm excited to scale a little more quickly with this transition into a larger multifamily.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. Sorry about this podcast arm flying around. My dog's right here laying down, and I guess he had an itch that he had to scratch. But yeah, I think that's really good, right? Talking about fitting your real estate goals into your lifestyle, right? So you want to be around for your kids more, so it's growing smartly, and I want to say slow because you've definitely gone fast, but right, not at a suicide pace, right? One that can still allow you to live like you want to, and I think that's awesome. So you talked in there about networking, and that has really helped you, expand your mind and think differently and think about growth more. And how has growing your network played into the growth in your real estate business? I know you host a meetup too there in St. Louis. How is that all tied together and to help?
Yeah, so I think I'm naturally kind of an extrovert and a networking personality. So that's really helped. And I wanted to do it up front. I heard that it would be helpful down the road, but more than anything, I was like, you don't have colleagues to your left and right in real estate like you might in your, 9-to-5 job. But I love this industry and I want to talk to people about it. So how can I get those people around me so I have more people to talk to and bounce ideas off of? I can only sit in front of a computer or on my phone reading articles so long before I want to have a face-to-face with somebody about this stuff. And so after I bought that first 4 family, which was in June or July of 2017 is when I closed. I did one of those little Bigger Pockets write-ups and posted it out there like, hey, in one of the forums, here's my first multifamily purchase. Here are the numbers. Here's how I got there. Just wanted to share. And I got a lot of great feedback on that post, including several people from the St. Louis area, which is where I live and invest. And so I started chatting with all these people in St. Louis and pretty quickly decided I wanted to get together a little meetup over a beer so that we could talk real estate. So I coordinated that and I started just the first few months sending an email to all these people from the area who had given me their contact information. And a few months in, everyone seemed to be enjoying it. And we had a good little core group of, 8 to 10 of us who were getting together. And so we decided, well, why don't we open it up? So then I started posting it on Bigger Pockets events. And this group just kind of naturally kind of blossomed over the past few years. We just recently hit our 3-year mark and it's been virtual the past several months, of course, but we're still doing it virtually every month right now. 3 of the gentlemen who started coming to the meetup and we all kind of clicked and we're always there. The 4 of us were definitely some of the regulars there. They started coming in and helping me with some of the coordination. And then we ended up, the real estate attorney I work with, who is also the co-owner of the title company I use, came one time and was like, this is a pretty good little group. Do you want to sponsor? And I was like, sure. So then I started getting a few sponsors just again from my own network. It was, my insurance guy, my lender, my agent, and a handful of folks came in as sponsors. And so we grew that. And I think on top of just surrounding yourself with people in real estate, when you are the person who takes the time and effort to put an event like that together, you start to be seen as somebody with a little bit of clout in the community. Not that it, if you only have 2 units, they're not going to look at you like someone who's got 20 units, but they see you as somebody who is taking time and effort to put something together, who has enough knowledge to realize that real estate is a people game and a networking game. And you're someone who they knows a lot of people in the industry. So I think it's also given me a little bit of extra, clout with some of the folks who come through the group. And it's given me a lot of different perspectives as well, exposure to people who are doing different things in the industry, people who know different areas of St. Louis City and County. So yeah, I think networking in general, I'm a big fan of it. I think everybody needs to be making time for it and prioritizing it. And ways I've done it besides the networking meetup are contributing on Bigger Pockets when I can. I have an Instagram at Part-Time Empire where I post a lot about what I'm doing and what I'm up to. And then just frequently having one-on-one coffees and meetups and calls with people as well.
Yeah, that's great. I think networking, oh man, it's probably like the single biggest thing that's contributed to my success in real estate. When I first got here to Panama City, I was at every meetup, like calling people off of Craigslist that were selling houses, like, hey, let's meet up, things like this. And now just took over the local Panama City Beach investor meetup and growing that. We had our biggest turnout last Wednesday. We meet once a month. And yeah, like what you're saying, it does give you a little bit of status within that real estate investor community, right? Especially if you're active and you have some units, right? And you can speak intelligently about the topic. But for all the people there too, right? You don't have to be the one running it. You just have to be there because you're going to get connected with all those people, right? We had a guy with like over 2,000 units in the local area show up. And we've had people that, are making like 200,000 a month off of short-term rentals come and present. So we have big hitters and you just get, by coming to those and going to those, you get around those people, right? Ideas get rubbed off on you. You get, access to, like you're saying, your attorney, your title person, all these things, right? You get value a lot of different ways, and then also can give back and help others. So networking and meetups is such a great thing. I'm glad we spoke on that. So definitely go look at your local area meetup. And what Megan was saying with Bigger Pockets, you can go to Bigger Pockets and search meetups. You can just Google, like, for me, like PCB meetup, real estate investor meetup, and it'll come up. Meetup.com is another great place to find them. So the resources are definitely out there for you. So Megan, what I know about you is that you're very family focused and oriented, and which I really respect because your investing falls in line with that, right? It's the family is what leads the investment strategy for you. And I want to talk about that now. I know we mentioned it in the beginning, but how your investments, right, allow you to focus on your family and also be present with them. I think that's such a great topic to get into because that's what brings a lot of people to real estate. Either they don't like their job or they want to spend more time with their children, whatever it is, right? Real estate allows you flexibility and freedom. So can you speak to how it's helped you in that regard? And then also like how you've, played those two to work together?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one thing I want to point off right off the bat is that I think most people think that freedom and flexibility comes from your real estate being able to cover all your expenses so you just don't have to work or no one in the family has to work anymore. And of course, that's a great goal. And my husband and I are still working towards that goal of getting cash flows to a point where he can leave work. But for us, we were very excited about the flexibility that we got fairly early on. It only took 2 years for us to get to the point where we felt comfortable with me leaving my full-time job. And, we actually had 2 very high-paying corporate jobs after our MBAs. So we were making pretty much equal salaries, very high salaries. And we, had the wiggle room, of course, in our budget for me to leave work, even if we had not invested in real estate. But I didn't want to feel like I was no longer contributing in some way or no longer building something for our family. And I wanted to know that we were going to still be on a path to get my husband out of work, before he was 60 or 65 as well. So real estate gave us the flexibility and options to let me leave work pretty quickly after we started investing. We only 2 years in, to have more time with our kids while they were young, because they were young now. I didn't want to be working full time and killing myself every morning and every night with real estate. I mean, frankly, I still do real estate in the mornings and at nights, but
Here we are at 6 a.m.
Right. But, if I hadn't been able to leave work, I would have done this at 5:30 to 6:30 a.m., then gone to work, then come back, had a couple hours with my kids, then put them to bed and done a couple more hours of real estate. Now I get to I've got childcare 3 days a week, so I can really dig in and be working on the real estate. But the rest of the week, even if I do something morning and night, the whole rest of my day is hanging out with my kids, spending time with them, teaching them things, taking care of them. And that was really important to me, to have that extra time with them, especially while they're young. If I had just kind of blown through these young years thinking, well, if I do it all now, work and real estate, and just don't give up on any of it, when they're older, I'll have freedom. Well, when they're older, they're in school 5 days a week. So everyone has a different preference on what kind of setup they want, of course. But for me personally, I felt like I wanted to get out of the 9 to 5 quickly so I could enjoy these young years, especially because they're so fleeting. They go so quickly. And so real estate gave me the ability, because we knew we were building wealth with these properties we already had. We weren't going to live on the cash flow, but we knew we could keep reinvesting them, and I could keep building these cash flows for us over time, but do it while having more time with my kids now. So it was a flexibility more than, immediate financial independence, but we're also already well on our way to that financial independence thanks to this real estate. So I think the flexibility, even more than, massive cash flows, is what's very exciting to me about real estate, and what empowered me to leave work way sooner than I probably would have otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's such a good thing to note, right? Because you don't have to completely replace your income for it to work for you or to leave your job, right? Especially if you are in a household where you have multiple incomes and one can still support the expenses, and all the real estate is adding to that, right? And also gives you the flexibility to continue to build the business at probably a faster rate than you could if you're working 9 to 5. And I love how you just went against like conventional wisdom of go to work, get a job, work till you're 65 and retire, right? Because that, like you're saying, that leaves, family is the most important thing to you. That leaves what, 2 to 3 hours per day with your family, and then the weekends. So if family is the most important thing, you do something that's gonna, reflect that value and invest and create passive income. You don't have to work for a paycheck necessarily. I think, Megan, how many hours hours of work do you do like each week on just managing your portfolio?
Oh, on managing, it varies, of course, maybe a little more around the first of the month when I'm making sure rents come in and doing my bookkeeping for the previous month, or if I have a turnover happening, that'll take a little bit more time. But I would estimate that I spend 5 to 10 hours per month on the management of my 10
this
units.
Per month.
So I don't, it's hard to say exactly, maybe like 3-ish hours per week on the high side.
And that's opposed to working, 40-hour work week.
Right.
You're well on your way to completely replacing your income, right? Your next, we were talking about this before the podcast. Your goal is the next investment is to be 16 units or more. So double your portfolio, time and a half it. So, with that, you're looking at completely, shifting your life to where you don't rely on a job, and then at that point or shortly thereafter your husband can join, right? And then you guys can really scale a business, and both of you not have to worry about working 9 to 5. And like I was saying, that's what draws a lot of people to real estate. But I think there's some, like you're saying, misconceptions about it, right? It doesn't have to completely replace your income. If you can cover the expenses, then you have the freedom to go work towards more to build. So I think that's a really good thing to know.
Yeah, and I will mention just real quick, something that made us comfortable with that switch. And I had somebody at a networking conference, a real estate networking conference that I went to in Chicago, I guess this would have been 3 years ago, kind of pushed me in the direction. He said, Megan, what is important to you? And I said, my kid. At that time, I only had one, and spending more time with her. She's so much fun, and so much is happening with her every day, and I want to be there for as much of it as possible. And he said, why aren't you leaving work right now? What's stopping you? What's holding you back? And I had all my reasons. Well, I've got a really good income, and I don't want to be holding us back for, my husband also retiring, and I also don't know if we can get loans, and yada, yada. And he said, okay, well, go start figuring out your answers to those questions. And one of the big ones I did was I called my lender and I said, hey, I'm thinking of leaving my job to focus a little more on this real estate as well as my family. How would that change our ability to buy more rental properties? Because obviously you don't want to hamper yourself from continuing to grow by doing something like this. And she said, well, that's an interesting question. Because you guys both have these big incomes, we've never considered your current rental income as part of the picture when we qualify you guys. So let me go do the math on your current rents. And I sent her, my rent roll, and she looked at it and she said, you know what, your borrowing power is going to stay about the same thanks to the rents you already have coming in. So while I wasn't replacing my income from a, cash flow that we live on perspective, and we were planning, the cash flow we did have was all going to be reinvested anyway, I had actually replaced it in terms of borrowing power, which I thought was really exciting. I had not expected that. So that's kind of one of those things that you can look at too. If you're this, dual income household and you're thinking you might want to make a change, there are a lot of different ways that you can look at your investment so far and decide, has this gotten us to a point where it makes sense for one of us to leave? And for us, that was one of the big factors when we realized, hey, we're not even hurting our borrowing power if I leave work.
Yeah, I love that. I want to meet this guy that asked you like, what's stopping you now? And then said like, knock it all out,
Yeah.
I think those are limiting beliefs, right? People put up obstacles in their head and just like let those stop them from taking action. But if you think of it just as that, an obstacle, what do you do with obstacles? You try to get around them, over them, under them, whatever you can to get past them. And that's what you did, Megan, to go make it happen. So yeah, there's just things in the way, right? You just have to learn how to play the game, like knowing your debt to income and things like that, to how you can still be creditworthy to banks. And you figured that out, and that was the key to continue to build. So whatever is in your way, go out there and find the way to get past it. I don't know like any better advice than that, because it's going to be different for everybody, but there's going to be things in your way, and just ask yourself what's more important, to stay at the status quo, to be away from your family, to go into a job you don't like all the time, or figure out how you can still get lending, figure out how you can make it happen. I think that's huge. So we mentioned just a minute ago that you're self-managing, and it's taken only, 10 hours or so a week or less, or per month, 10 hours or less per month. So what are some tips that you would share for other people looking to do the same, so that they can have their time freedom, and then also that, puts more money in your pocket as well? So what are some good tips for you?
Yeah. So I will say, first of all, I did have property management when I was working full time. And I know people who manage their own properties even while they were working, but at the time I just wasn't, I was trying to do the family thing and the work thing and find more real estate, and carving out the time to set up some systems and processes for managing myself just wasn't happening for me at that stage. After I left work, I pretty quickly decided I wanted to take on management, because I felt that a lot of my success with the properties I already had and the ability to maximize cash flows was going to come from those properties being managed as effectively and proactively as possible. And while I don't think any of the property managers I use were ever trying to do anything wrong, or, were just awful examples of property management, I did feel like the proactive approach and the really tight processes just weren't there. Not to say that my processes are, perfect, but I did take time as I was getting ready to take over my properties, digging into, I actually used Brandon Turner's and Heather Turner's book, the book on managing rental properties.
Yep.
I dug into that and I use that as kind of my base.
I use the same one. I self-manage my long-term
Yeah,
rentals, and it's like a step-by-step guide almost. Everything's in there, it seems.
exactly. So I use that to really set up my processes and systems. And then when I renovate properties, I really make sure that I'm doing things that will kind of keep it
Tenant proof.
tenant proof and easy to turn over. So it's something that people and, my consumers or my customers will get excited about. So when I am turning over a unit, it's a quick turnover, because vacancy, that's probably the biggest thing that drives me crazy is long vacancies. And that was one of the headaches I had with some of the property management.
Which, yeah, they never care about the investment like you do, which is, it's almost counterintuitive because they're making a percentage of the income collected. So the more income they can collect, the better, the more they can make. But I don't know if they're just not driven by the same things or what, but
yeah. And it's just, any one unit is such a tiny piece of their overall portfolio. Now, if they kind of recognized how processes could get all of it running more effectively and efficiently and everything turning over more quickly, they probably would make a decent amount more money. But my understanding is that a lot of property management is just, they're bogged down because they're always trying to run kind of lean based on how they make money. And it just,
it's a tough business.
it's not, it's
like
not easy.
Scale. It is a tough business.
Yeah. I would not want to be a property manager personally for, other people's properties. So the renovation is part of it. And then online tools is a huge thing for me. So I use Tenant Cloud online for my management. And I mean, it's shockingly inexpensive. It's like, I think $90 per year, and you can have up to 30 or 50 units. I can't remember which, for just $90 per year. And you can do everything on that. You can collect security deposits, you can collect applications, you can do the background and credit check, you can collect monthly rent, you can sign the lease. I mean, everything can be done through this portal. So it's 95% of things can be done through this portal. So it's pretty amazing. And I can even, house documents that aren't from Tenant Cloud. I can scan them and upload them to the Tenant Cloud portal for a certain tenant. So it's a really great system that keeps things pretty easy for me. And even when I've, traveled, I love travel. I can just check Tenant Cloud on my phone and kind of keep up to date and make sure nothing's happening or maintenance requests aren't coming through.
It makes it simple because it all goes through one platform. I use something similar, not the same one, but it's kind of the same setup. You use Cozy, so everything goes through that.
And Cozy was actually the other one I looked at when I was deciding between the two. And I think Cozy's there's a free version of it. And I could honestly not tell you what made me choose Tenant Cloud over Cozy now, but a year and a half ago, I did my comparison and chose Tenant Cloud. But yeah, the final thing that really keeps self-management easy on me is I willingly pay to outsource the pieces I don't want to do. And generally that means the pieces that are in person, taking me away from time with my kids. If I have to answer a quick text message or email on days when I'm with my kids, that's not the end of the world. But if I have to literally find a sitter so I can go and show a vacant unit to somebody, I'm not on board with that. So I have a really great leasing agent I found who is willing to do things very proactively. He will usually take my photos and my description and start marketing a unit before the previous tenant has left, and will actually ask me if he can have like an hour for an open house on a weekend 2 or 3 weeks before the current tenant leaves. So usually he is sending me applicants who I can get through the vetting process and approve and get their security deposits before my previous tenant leaves.
So you can minimize the vacancy.
They're moving in within a week of the previous tenant leaving. Some of them, it's like a day or two later. So that is always amazing because it cuts down my vacancy to almost nothing. I do pay 1 month's rent to the leasing agent, but I'm more than happy to do that because I don't have 2 or 3 months of vacancy like I used to have. He is willing to do all the hustle for me and deal with all those initial phone calls and tire kickers and taking people through the unit. And I just get a tenant quickly and keep my units filled. So he's great. I also, of course, have contractors and handymen and people who do all the other, physical work on these properties. So those are kind of the things. I actually, sounds silly, but I turned it into an acronym for myself. PROP is kind of like my way of keeping this stuff running. So it's the processes and procedures, it's the renovation to tenant-proof things, it's those online tools, and it's good people.
Prop. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. As an Air Force guy, I got to respect that.
Right? I mean, the Marine Corps is the same way. Everything's an acronym.
We have so many acronyms. I don't know. There's a lot of them. Yeah.
Yep.
That's really good points about self-management. Self-management doesn't mean you do everything, right? It means you leverage other people instead of the property manager leveraging other people. And I would recommend it for somebody starting out, because you read Brandon Turner's book, you learn everything, right? And then down the road, as you scale your multifamily portfolio, you become a better asset manager, because you realize and understand what the property managers are doing, what they go through, those tips and tricks to keep your vacancy down, which, over a large portfolio is going to contribute massively to your, success or failure, and definitely your profit and loss. So I guess talking about that, growing and scaling into bigger multifamily, now that you've had success, you've set up your prop structure on your 10 units right now, you're looking to time and a half that. So what steps are you taking to jump into the commercial multifamily realm?
Yeah. So in the commercial space, networking is even more important. A lot of these deals never hit the market, never come out as an MLS listing or a mass email or any of that stuff. Some of them do, but a lot of stuff brokers get, and they know a certain investor in their network who closes on those deals and does it consistently. And they go straight to that person and they say, hey, look at this X unit building. Would you like it? And they say, yeah, sure, I'll take that. And you've never even seen it, but a transaction has happened. So I'm really trying to get in with some of the right people. I've got a couple different agents and brokers who I've started working with, and I'm trying to get the lay of the land for other folks that I can be networking with for finding these deals. I'm also doing some direct mail, because even though I think lots of people are doing direct mail these days, and it's not necessarily some like new thing that people are doing that makes you stand out, I like the idea of getting direct to some sellers. And so I've actually gotten a few leads that way that I'm kind of working on. Lots of them are, with the market being the way it is, looking for a lot more than I would be willing to pay. I'm not, it's not going to hit
Seems like a lot of them are
my
right
cash
now.
on cash requirements if I pay what they want. But, I'm trying. I'm working through the process. I'm talking with sellers. I'm seeing properties. And then probably a very important part of this whole process is, as I see these properties from some of the brokers I've started to work with, or from these sellers that I've reached out to through direct mail, I'm getting to underwrite deals and understand some of the nuances and some of the differences between small multifamily and commercial multifamily. And a large part of that is, some of the expenses and the way that works out, and a little bit of the lingo and the speak for how you talk about analyzing these. But the lending is big. And so I've also chatted with a few different banks in the area, gotten the down low on how they loan and what their terms are, and how I need to prepare and what information they need from me. So a lot, of course, all happening at once, but I would say networking and lining up the finances has been the two main pushes for me so far, along with, of course, underwriting a lot of deals.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Networking and finding out how lending is working right now. One, networking, because deals are tight. It's hard to find good ones right now. So you have to make that extra effort to network. You said you're sending out direct mail. I just got a lead on a 29 unit that came from direct mail here in Panama City. So, yes, you want to contact brokers. Yes, you want to, be able to speak their lingo and be that one that gets the pocket listings. But I think right now in a competitive market, you have to be doing it all, right? If you're really serious about it. And that's how you're going to fill the top of your funnel, right? You have to get leads in, like you're saying, you have to analyze them, because through doing that, you're going to find what makes a good deal in your market, right? You're going to just get the experience so that when you see one, you say, oh, that, just by what I know already, I know that one's going to, be worth pursuing. And then you got to make offers and finally get to the close. So filling the funnel is super important right now. So thanks for sharing that. As we begin to wrap up here, for someone starting out in multifamily, what do you think is the most important thing to consider when selecting what size and what type? Like, what should they be filling the top of their funnel with, and what's the most important there?
Yeah, I think, gosh, that's a good question. I think as you're deciding the type of property and the size, you need to be thinking about your strengths and the strengths of anyone you have around you, right? So for me, I'm talking with a lot of folks who are ready to make the jump into multifamily, and they're looking at 80 to 100 units if they can find it. They really want to make the jump and make it big. For me, I've got a lot of strengths in real estate so far. I understand small multifamily. I can self-manage to a certain extent. At some point, I'll have to probably bring on an assistant of some sort. But I'm very focused on family and family time. And so I felt like starting more in the small to mid-size of commercial real estate made more sense for me. So I think you just need to think about your strengths and your lifestyle and the goals you have there so that you can think about what really makes sense for me. If I had a much bigger team that I was already working with, then maybe I'd be looking at some of the bigger deals because that workload is going to be spread out more. But right now it's kind of going to be me and one, maybe two other people. And we're all in similar situations in terms of our experience level so far. So to me, it makes more sense to stay in that 16 to maybe up to 30 units for this next purchase rather than going to 80 units right away. And so, yeah, I would say lifestyle and your personal strengths.
That is such fantastic advice. I think people oftentimes get influenced by what others are doing or what works for other people, but find the investment that works for you, right? That might be a fourplex right now, and that's fine. It might be 100+ unit apartment complex. If that works for you, that's great, right? But right now you're saying that 16 to 30 works perfect for you because it fits in your skill set, it fits in your time slot and the lifestyle you want to create right now because your kids are young before they're in school. So I think that's so important. Like, find the strategy that works for you. That I think that would be the most important thing. That'd be like probably the number one advice I'd give someone too, right? Just depends on you. Don't worry about all the noise. Find what works for you and go out and make it happen. Then get over the obstacles chasing that, right? Don't chase everything. Chase what you're good at.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And Blake, I would say that there are a lot of people out there, and I'm guilty of it too, who you do get wrapped up in just the industry itself and what you see out there and how big you see some people going. And you're like, wait, that guy was in the same place that I was a year ago, but look how much further he is now. What am I doing wrong? You might not be doing anything wrong. It might just be that you guys are in different places, or you have different skill sets, or you have different goals. And so I think keeping your why really central, and it doesn't mean don't push and don't try to push boundaries and grow in different ways and scale in different ways. But don't try to, people talk about from a financial perspective, personal finance perspective, not keeping up with the Joneses. I think it kind of applies too in your career or your industry or your investing. If you're constantly looking at what other people are doing and judging yourself based on that, you're going to get your priorities kind of out of whack. If you stay really focused on what you're trying to achieve and why you're trying to achieve it, you have a better feel for what you need to be focused on. And I think that's huge for beginners too, because I've had lots of people reach out to me and say, hey, I really want to do real estate. What should I do? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Why do you want to do real estate? What are your goals? You need to think through those things yourself, and don't rely on other people to set those for you.
Yeah, that's great. I don't even have anything to add because I agree 100%. That was said very well. Very well. So let's transition to the next section, the Fortune 5, the questions at the end I ask every investor. So let's jump right in. What is the biggest thing that has contributed towards your success?
I think That's a tough one because it feels like there are a lot of things, but I'm going to go with kind of like the mindset or the perspective. I talk about this a lot. I think I was very fortunate to grow up in a family. You know, my dad was Marine and my mom was just this kick-ass woman who was raising 3 kids, even though we moved every few years, and also like getting her degrees on the side and everything. So I was raised in a family where it was always kind of like, are things hard? Okay, let's acknowledge it, but let's work past it anyway. You know, there wasn't a lot of room for whining and crying and gnashing of teeth. We just were taught to be flexible and adaptable and figure it out. And then as I've gotten, you know, into my career and into real estate, surrounding myself with other people who are like that in this industry has really helped as well. So I think it can be tough sometimes. You can spend a lot of time looking at a lot of deals before you find something that works. And even once you find that thing that works, you can close on it and have renovations go awry or have more maintenance and repairs than you expected. And it can be kind of a mind game sometimes if you let that stuff get to you. And there are many days where I let it get to me, but I think most of the time, thanks to kind of the people who raised me and the people who I surround myself with now, including my husband, who's got a really great mindset and is always very supportive, I'm able to stay on track because I don't let the little things get me down, at least not for long. So I think that's a huge contributor to my success.
Love it. Just keep pushing. Like Dory said, just keep swimming.
There you go. There you go.
Awesome. What has been your biggest mistake so far that's turned out to be a learning lesson for you?
I think probably it's hard to say. I don't know if it's a mistake or just, you know, this is part of the process, but not thinking big enough or not, some of the times, not looking past the obstacle. So I can think back to this 1-4 family in a really great area that I was so excited about. And I was talking with the seller. It was off market. I was like the person talking with her at this point. And we couldn't quite get together on price. And when I look back, I think it was only like $10,000 or $15,000 difference, which at the overall price of this property and given the area, like I should have just gone for it. I should have just, you know, taken her price and made it work because it was not that far off. And when you amortize that over 30 years, it wouldn't have been a huge deal. So I think sometimes, even though I try to always stay positive with this mindset, I can still get stuck in the numbers to a point that I'm missing the forest for a couple of trees. You know what I mean? So I've definitely learned from that. And I still do it sometimes because I am a numbers person and I like to analyze and I like to feel like I'm hitting my numbers and sticking to my criteria. But there's got to be a little wiggle room and a little creativity somewhere, especially in a market like this. So that's probably a big learning for me in the past couple of years.
And I love that. This is one of my favorite questions I get to ask people because you really get to dig into the transparency and find out, you know, those pain points for other people and then how you can avoid them. And I've absolutely been victim of what you're just saying, you know, focus on the forest, not just the tree.
Yep.
That's good. So what's your favorite real estate resource you would recommend for someone starting out with us, a book or a podcast or a website?
Yeah, I've got to hand it to Bigger Pockets. I mean, I think that's probably where so many of us who are active in real estate these days got our start. Josh Shorkin was actually also a graduate of Washington University in St. Louis. So we've got that connection. And yeah, they're the ones who, when I was looking up real estate after my daughter was born, I had looked into it years prior when I was actually active duty in the Marine Corps. I was interested. I just never quite found enough information. And I was just kind of flirting with the idea. When I found Bigger Pockets for the first time was shortly after my daughter was born. And I dove in, and I think I took maybe 3 or 4 months to really educate myself. And then I was starting to make offers on properties. And they just had so much content between the podcasts, which I listened to on my commute to and from work every single day, the blogs, which I read frequently, and all the different, I mean, a couple webinars that I attended. They have so many different resources. And then I've also bought a lot of their books and read those over the years. So Bigger Pockets really has a bit of it all. And I think it's where a lot of us have gotten our start. So I don't think there's another one resource that I could say besides Bigger Pockets if I have to pick one.
Yeah, that's huge. They were instrumental in me starting out as well, from the books to the podcast to the forums, everything. Like once you decide on real estate, I think it started out like just Googling like real estate investing after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and came across Bigger Pockets, and like the rest is history. Started buying properties not long after that.
Yep.
The value they throw off is amazing. And I'm trying to match that in my own brand and podcast, because how much they help me, that's like my driving force is to be that for people, like after they decide on real estate. And then, once they get to multifamily, I'm trying to be like the value add in the multifamily space. So I love that. Love Bigger Pockets. Definitely check them out.
Absolutely.
So outside of real estate, I know we talked family. So what do you like to do outside of real estate?
Yeah, definitely spending time with my family. Like I said earlier, my kids are 4 and 1, so they're both really at fun stages. They still like me and my husband a lot. We're not at the teenage phase where they don't want to spend time with us. And they're constant entertainment. So I love spending time with them. I'm a former Marine, so I like working out and being active as much as I can with young kids. And then I grew up living abroad for several years, and I really, really love travel within the US, but then also internationally. So I'm not getting as much of that this year with the pandemic, but usually I try to do at least one international trip per year. Points from credit cards, from renovations actually have really helped with it. So it's kind of funny. I've been able to like travel hack.
Good way to use credit cards.
Yeah. Thanks to you pay them off in full every month, guys, but there are some cool benefits if you can be responsible with them. So yeah, and I've actually taken, our young kids on multiple international trips because I'm just that obsessed with travel, and I drag my husband and kids along with me.
I love it. They'll get a lot out of that as they get older.
Yep.
So where can people find out more about you, Megan, or connect with you?
Yeah. So I actually also co-host a podcast now. I have joined with Josiah Smelzer, and we have Multifamily Mavericks. So you can find us on Instagram at Multifamily Mavericks. I have my own kind of business real estate Instagram at Part-Time Empire. I'm also active on LinkedIn and Bigger Pockets, so you can find me in any of those places. Sometimes it gets a little busy, but I really try to keep connecting with people and respond to messages and keep the conversations going, because I love the networking part, and you just never know where all of that will lead.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely check Megan out on Instagram. She posts some good stuff on there about, what she's doing, lifestyle investing. So that's awesome. Check out her new podcast as well. But yeah, Megan, thank you so much for coming on here, bringing value to people today. I think your story is awesome, how you started and where you're going in the future by laying the foundation, and for you, it's just one brick after the next and building. So I love that approach. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I really like what you're doing here, and I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're out of here.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like the show, if you found value in it, please go to iTunes and leave a rating and review. And if you want to check out more on your multifamily journey, go to multifamilyjourney.com, where you can get free resources to start your journey and figure out your path. That's multifamilyjourney.com. But more importantly, go take action today towards your financial future. See you next time.